It's 2 years now, or just over 2 years since the accident happened. How were you and your family doing?
Truthfully, I think it was worse this year. 2 years on, it was worse. And I don't really understand. I didn't expect that. I thought it would be better. But the 2-year anniversary for me was horrific, actually. I was very, very affected by him still not being here. Because I don't think you deal with death well, and we don't understand it. We don't understand that somebody's actually gone and we can't speak to them anymore. Not when it's somebody that should be here, not when it's your child. And I guess really you're expecting you go on your day-to-day life, I think, expecting that someday you're just going to open the door and he's going to be there. And you can say to him, oh, you'll never guess what we've done. And then it was 2 years, and that blew me away. I think even more than the year anniversary, and I found that quite strange, actually.
Now, what was Matthew like? What sort of Matthew-shaped hole have you been left in your life?
Oh, he was a big personality, very loving. He was a student here, and he was. It's funny coming into this hall. I remember coming to a parents' evening here, and I used to come around and speak to all the teachers, and it was like, we've got Matthew's mum in, let's get her, because he didn't always like his studies. He wanted to do his own thing. He was quite an independent. I always thought with Matthew, the same mums know their kids, and I thought with Matthew he'd got to scrape the bottom of the barrel with everything to learn the lesson. But he was a real kind. A young man. He was kind, He wasn't always wise, but he was very loyal. He loved his family, he loved his brothers, and was very loyal to his friends, and was a very affectionate son. And I was very proud of him, and I miss him. I miss him so much.
And how he was your eldest son as well?
He was my first.
How have Ben and Jack coped with it all?
Not well at all. Matthew was always there for them, you see. Matthew was the big brother for both of them. It's odd losing a sibling. They fought, just like brothers did, argued, about who'd have more dinner, or who would have the extra roast potato, or, who'd, all the things that brothers do. Sometimes get really cross with each other. But the love that they had for one another was just incredible. And we were a very close family, and the hole that he's left it's devastating, really, for Jack and Ben. I don't think they really know how to cope daily without him. It's funny, they didn't see him every day because he wasn't living at home. But he was only in the next village, and, they would see him sporadically throughout the week, and he's just not there to be, He was the first that did everything. Matt went to school first, and then Jack and Ben turned up later, and he was like always protecting them. And it seemed as if they could do no wrong, really, because Big Brother was always about. And so it's difficult to explain, I think, really, how they feel. I lost my sister when I was young, and I think when you lose a sibling, it completely leaves a hole for the rest of your life. I can't really explain that, so I don't expect my sons to be recovering easily, and they're not. They're not.
Now, you've heard today from Michael as well. Michael and Matthew were good friends.
Yes.
They were all close friends. Did you think it would ever be that this friendship would lead to you losing Matthew?
No. I knew that Matthew did his own thing, You don't imagine it, and you couldn't. You couldn't ever prepare yourself for something like this, because it's not something you would ever want to touch upon. It's the worst nightmare anybody can face, to lose somebody, especially in a car accident, because one minute they're there and the next they're not. I fully intended to pop and see Matthew. I just thought, I haven't seen him for about a week. I'll go and pop round. I'll ring him. And then you think about the things that, the last thing you said to him. What was the last thing you said? What was the last text message you sent? And we got his phone back and from the crash, and it's just awful because, you know, they say never leave anybody on an argument, not somebody that you care about. Not that we did, but I've got so much still to say to him. I've got so much. I can't, and he can't hear me.
And it'll all be love-based, but
yes.
He got in that car that night. Would you be having words with him about that as well?
Oh, my goodness, yes. So I'd remonstrate with him, and he wouldn't listen to a word I said, of course, you know, because, oh, Mum, I'm all right. I'm invincible. That's what he used to say to me. I'm invincible. You know what? He's not, and he wasn't. And yes, I would have sat down with him. I would have said to him, what are you doing? You know, taking risks. But he just thought he was going to be okay. He just thought, we'll be okay. They'd done it before.
Did you know they'd done it before?
Did I know? No, because it's not something you tell your mum, is it? So, but I, you know, just because I'm a mum doesn't mean I don't remember being young. And you do things when you're young, not really always seeing or imagining that there's going to be any adverse effect on it, because, you know, you're enjoying life. Life's good, you're young, you're experiencing things. That's how it is. But the consequences of their actions were just devastating. That decision that he made to get in that car, I just wish one of them, I always think if just one of them might have said, do you think we should leave the car? The others might have just joined in. You know how sometimes you're in a group and you're all thinking, you know, I daren't say that, but I'm thinking it, I daren't ask that question, or I daren't say that. And then when somebody just goes, oh, and makes the statement, you all go, oh yes, I agree with that. And that's how it kind of works. Sometimes we don't always feel confident, do we, to speak up. And I just think, you know, if one of them had had the confidence to speak up, to say, this is not a wise decision. This is not, you know, let's not do this, mates. I'll ring me mum. She's going to give me such grief on the phone, but she'll be here to pick me up. I just think that if one of them had done that, then they'd be here today. And I wouldn't have to be telling this story. I know, because this doesn't go away. I take this with me all the time. You know, I live with this all the time.
Michael's serving his sentence.
Yeah.
You're serving this one, aren't you?
Yes, the whole family and friends. It's like a pebble, you know, and you dip it in a pond, and the ripples just keep going and going, and time doesn't really fade them. I've not found that at all.
Now, hearing Michael talk today, how difficult has that been for you?
I find it difficult to talk or to hear, I suppose, because as a mum, I almost want to dip into that part of the story and go, stop. Just think what you're doing. Just think, please stop. But I can't, because we're in the future now and I can't do that. So I do find it difficult, but I do believe that Michael's done the right thing in speaking out about it, because if we can't bring something good from this, then my son's life has no value. He was a lovely, wonderful young man, and he was just on the precipice of waiting to wake up, for that's how I felt. I felt he was waiting, he was just starting to get his confidence and start to really know who he was. And I was just waiting for that all to happen, all to blossom, you know. And because that's what, like a mum, that's what happens with mums. Sometimes your children don't always, they blossom at different times, and you just wait, watching, knowing that will open up. And I was just waiting for him, and he was finding himself. He was really maturing. He was making better decisions until this one night when he just decided, oh, we're having fun. And I like fun. I like fun a lot, and anybody that knows me will back that up. But so I would never stop my children or anybody else having fun. But
you said, Matthew got into that car willingly. Michael was driving it. How do you feel about Michael? Have you forgiven him?
I forgave Michael from the onset, really, from the first day of the accident, because we were all in shock. And it's a strange thing, really, when you first hear your son's died. And we'd been to the hospital, and we'd seen him I had to see him because I didn't actually believe he was dead. I wouldn't believe anybody. It was almost, my husband told me, and I pushed him away. I absolutely just pushed him away. I couldn't cope, and I didn't believe him.
Where were you when you heard, and how did you hear?
We were at a meeting in Dudley, and our phone had been switched off because you're listening and you taking notes. And we just had lunch, and we're all chatting away with different people I haven't seen for ages, that live in Birmingham that I don't see regularly. And we're all chatting and having a laugh, and all of a sudden I can see my husband coming down the side, and I'm standing talking to one of my friends who I haven't seen for a while, and he's walking and he just blanks this lady, and I was thinking, you right, so when I get you home I'll tell you. I thought, oh, what's he doing? But he just pulled me to one side. I think we were all in shock. Nobody was really dealing with it well. And then we rang the police because they couldn't get hold of us, you see, because we weren't at home and because we'd had our mobiles switched off. And it was my son Jack who had actually switched his mobile back on, and when he switched his mobile back on, all these text messages came up because it had gone onto Facebook, because it had happened at 6:30 in the morning, and this was about 1 o'clock.
So lots of people knew about it before you did?
Yeah, and then Jack, he didn't understand because they kept saying, I'm really sorry to hear about your brother. And he had no idea what they were talking about and which brother they were talking about. So he rang his friend, and that, how do you do that? How do you tell somebody your brother's been killed in an accident? Because that's exactly what she had to do. Because he said, what are you talking about? What's the text message?
And how old was Jack?
He was 18 at the time, and Ben was 16.
And so he got hold of your husband and told him?
Yeah, he came. He was with us in the hall, and he came and got us and told my husband, and that's when my husband came, and he just said, look, we've got to go. He kept pulling me away, and I was trying to look at him to say, what are you doing? I'm trying to talk to my friend. And he said, we've got to go. And I said, look, why? What's wrong? And that's when he said, there's been an accident. And I didn't, well, you just don't know what to think then. And he said, it's Matthew. And I just looked at him and I couldn't, and he just sort of shook his head, and we don't think he's survived. And that's when I just pushed him. I just literally pushed him, poor chap. We were just all in shock. It wasn't good. My mum and dad were there. My dad was in a terrible state. But we had a lot of good friends around us, and we drove home, and that's when we went to the hospital to identify him. And
you described there that it was like seeing him asleep.
Just like he was asleep, He slept crooked. He just slept, and it was like that in the bed. When I went to him, there was his gums, his mouth was open, and his gums were grey, and he was cold, and I cannot get that out of I can't.
You remember him as the lively, cheeky chap that he was?
I do, yeah, and I do.
That image sticks
I
with you.
do, but you can't help remembering certain things. You don't try to. You can't help it. It springs up from anywhere. You can be watching the news and see somebody, you know, on the news, you know, that's died, or you can see a picture of people, you know, like in the Philippines at the moment, and that picture just comes boom straight there. It's my brain just won't let that go. I don't want it, because that's not how I remember him. I remember him fondly. I remember him for just the wonderful young man he was. He was such a funny kid as well. We had so much fun when he was younger. You know, such a funny, happy-go-lucky, you know, funny kid. Just had a lot of fun with him, you know.
Now you said you've forgiven Michael.
Yes.
If you're comfortable, is it okay for Michael to come back out and join us?
Yes.